Welcome all to the Tortillas and Takes podcast. You are on once again with your boy, I'll be sure, and Texas Tech is about to play Oregon State. That's right, we got a formerly Pac-12 team. Well, no, they're currently Pac-12 team. Actually, what am I talking about? They are a currently Pac-12 team for the second year in a row. Last year, we got the opportunity to play Washington State in Pullman, and if you remember, we originally were going to play Washington State in Lubbock, and then it was like, ooh, team's pretty good. Let's take the worst of the two. Grab Oregon State and Lubbock instead. So to talk about this, the game against the Beavs, we got the People's Champion himself, Jeremy Gunn. What's up, Jeremy?
What's up? Been excited. Been excited for this one. It's always, looking at the non-con, you got the first two games. Everybody's going, Texas Tech ain't played nobody. They ain't played nobody. And while Oregon State may not be the somebody of somebodies, they're a name that people recognize, and that matters to some people, not to me.
So basically what you're saying is because we have heard the name Oregon State before, we will gain a smidgen of respect.
There was a time where Oregon State was good at football. This is not that time.
Yeah, this ain't it. And it's actually kind of interesting because a couple of years ago, in the last year of the Pac-12, or the real Pac-12, they were actually pretty good that year. Oregon State football has not been successful for a while, but for that about 2 seasons, with a quarterback whose name escapes me right now, but the quarterback that used to be the heir apparent to Trevor Lawrence at Clemson, then kicked out of Clemson. But at Oregon State, he actually was pretty successful. So much so that he was like, you know what? Time for me to go back and play with the big dogs. Florida State, I'm here. And then he was awful at Florida State. Florida State is happy self at Oregon State. But outside of those 2 seasons, or 1 or 2 seasons, Oregon State has just really been bunt. It's not been a good program. And now that the former Pac-12 teams have left them and Washington State behind, Wazoo, surprisingly, has been able to stay steady. And a lot of that is based on, ever since Mike Leach got there, they've just been able to build on a good foundation. Like, they've had 2 coaches since Mike Leach, but the foundation's been strong at Wazoo. So even though they've been left behind, they've still stayed somewhat successful. Oregon State has not had that same luck. It's just not a very good team, and not a very good program. And I'm going to tell you this: even in the new Pac-12 that'll start next year, Oregon State is not going to be a favorite to win that. Right? Like we're not going to. It's not like Oregon State and Washington State should really be able to puff their chest out in the new Pac-12. And I do think Wazoo is going to be able to do that, at least for the early iterations. I don't think Oregon State will.
No, absolutely not. Once Coach Smith left 2 years ago, like you said, kind of when the Pac-12 was dying out, just totally changed. Just has not been the same culture. Has not been the. I've been trying to look up. Were you talking about the DJ? Yeah,
Ugalele. Yeah, Ugalele. That guy.
Ugalele. Yeah, Ugalele. Yeah, I was trying to figure out who you were talking about. I was tracking, just couldn't remember the name, surprisingly. But yeah, Oregon State just not on the right trajectory. And when the reconvergence of the Pac-12, it's like the Pac-12 died, and then it's like being sewn back together, kind of as some weird Frankenstein conference. You would expect hey, now we have the opportunity to kind of take this next step in our legacy, being that legacy Pac-12 team, and taking that step towards, being that upper level team. It just really isn't starting off strong for the Beavers.
They've been munched, Jeremy. They've been.
That's what beavers do. They munch on wood.
Yes, sure. Well, I bet they do.
Golly. Well, whenever YouTube asks me, "Is this episode made for children?" I have to say no.
Of course it is. I don't know what we're talking about. Or do they? But all in all, like you said, this just hasn't been a very good program. In general, I do feel for those fans because, I like to make jokes about certain teams not having any fans. Oregon State has fans, right? Like that's if you're in rural Oregon, right, which is really the entire state except for Portland, you are except for Portland and Eugene. Like there's Portland, there's Eugene, and then there's Oregon State fans. Unlike that, everywhere else, right? And so they have fans, but unfortunately for those fans, that program hasn't given them any type of anything to be happy about, with one exception. Pretty good baseball program.
Yeah,
pretty good baseball program. That's about it. So you've turned most of rural Oregon into baseball fans. So there you go. Props on that. Outside of that, it's been pretty disappointing. So let's talk about the Beavs a little bit, Jeremy. So starting off, the Beavers this year had 2 games. I mentioned a little bit in the last episode. They've played 2 games so far. First game against the Cal Bears. Now, you may be saying, oh, no, maybe I read it wrong. Like, no, I can't be talking about the Cal Bears. Like, I'm actually talking about like UCLA, California, Los Angeles, right? Or no, Southern Cal must be what he's talking about, right? No. I mean, legitimately the Cal Bears, a team that has not been good since Aaron Rodgers was there, is the team I'm talking about here. And they not only lost to the Cal Bears, they got whooped by the Cal Bears by the tune of 19, a 3-score loss to the California Golden Bears in a game where they gave up 234 yards and 3 touchdowns in the air. They gave up 129 yards and a touchdown on the ground. A game where they really struggled not only stopping the Cal Bears on defense, but also struggled to get anything going offensively, right? A scenario where you are you're just really not scoring much, right? In this game, they only scored 3 times. And that's just absolutely unacceptable. Especially, and not to mention, they scored 3 times. There was a field goal and 2 touchdowns. And you may be saying, well, how does that equal 15? It's because they failed the 2-point conversion twice. But even when they scored, they couldn't score. Right. So that's game 1. And then you say, okay, well, at the very least, you know what? Oregon State, you lose to Cal, former Pac-12 team. It happens. At least you'll be able to play a lesser opponent, an opponent that you want to get the edge on as they move into the new Pac-12, right? So you're going from old Pac-12 to new Pac-12, Fresno State, right? Fresno State, this year's our last year in the Mountain West. They're about to move to the Pac-12. And you're like, okay, well, you know what? This is about to be a foe. This is about to be a team we're going to play on the regular, right? Let's get the upper hand now now. And you may even say that real defensively they did a little bit better, right? They held Fresno State to 121 yards passing. They themselves, Malik Murphy, the quarterback, threw for 371 yards in this game and 4 touchdowns, right? You're saying to yourself, well, Anthony Hankerson ran for 136 yards. You know what? Yeah, we got the Dogs. We got the Bulldogs. All that, and they still lost by 9. How's that even possible? Still lost by 9. So this not great, Bob. Like, this is as good as Tech has played in beating up on bad teams. Oregon State has played 2 mediocre teams, and still they're 0-2, right? So, I mean, what do you make of this early season stank that Oregon State has already mustered?
Oregon State is I was watching Stats of War, Parker putting out his, how bad do we get beat? And Oregon State continues to be on the wrong side of that, where they should have won the game and they lost it, and it makes one wonder, like, is Oregon State the best 0-2 team right now? Because they're just like getting in their own way. Because if you look at the Fresno State game, what really sealed it for the Bulldogs was they had that pick 6 late. And that's not unfamiliar. Malik Murphy, who should be a relatively known name, right? He had his like big debut at Texas, but ended up transferring out, going to Duke, and had a fairly decent season for the Blue Devils. For some reason decided, you know what, I'm gonna go to Oregon State. I'm gonna go to real school.
They kind of moved on from him, but
I don't want to be harsh, but ends up at Oregon State. And if for good reason, right? Because Malik Murphy so far in the season, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He is floating, and 60% completion rating or whatever. He is floating mid, like, for sure. So while he may have like flashes of, hey, this is why Texas recruited him, he certainly remains a quarterback who is not probably learned very much, over the course of his tenure. And a lot of that, developing a bunch of different relationships with different receivers, kind of different offensive playing styles. I get that. At the same time, quarterback mistakes like forcing throws, throwing to a wrong side of the receiver, like that stuff, that's got to be correctable, and especially at this point in your career. So Malik Murphy has been single-handedly like what is lifting up, but what is also holding back Oregon State offensively. Now, I know they're going to turn to Hankerson Hankerson had a huge year for them last year, and he's kind of the only like brightest spot on their depth chart in terms of the offense. Somebody that's reliable. And I say that because if you look at the receivers, like, okay, they've got receivers who are getting the ball, a la, Trent Walker, but that half of that formula relies on Malik Murphy. So it's like Malik Murphy having a good game. Great. Receivers may play really well. They can't make him be a better quarterback. So Oregon State's just dealing with a lot offensively around the quarterback position, just identity. Defensively, you got to wonder, why the scheme is not working against these teams like Cal, who scored in every quarter. Now in Fresno State, they had a good stand in the third, where they didn't let Fresno State get in the red zone and get any points. But in the fourth, they broke down. The pick six and then a couple of other scores, and it's just like, Oregon State just doesn't have a lot going their way right now.
Yeah, they don't. And you might be saying like, oh, well, guys, maybe we're being pretty harsh. I'm sure they had a good season last year. They didn't. Last year, and mind you, like they're playing in a mediocre, like they're virtually independent this year and last year. And so the teams they're playing are not great teams. They did get the opportunity to beat Purdue last year, which is pretty cool. And then they also did play Oregon and got whooped by Oregon. But so everybody did. So like, you might say, okay, well, they beat Purdue, which is a Big Ten team, technically, not by skill set, but by by admission. And then they lost to Oregon, but everybody lost to Oregon. So it's not that big of a deal. Like, how bad was Oregon State really last year? And then you look at everything else. You say, oh, well, it took them double overtime to beat Colorado State. And then they went on a 5-game losing streak, losing to the likes of Cal again, UNLV, San Jose State, Air Force shut them out, Nevada. And then they ended their season with just getting absolutely spanked by Boise State. This is just simply not a good team. I will say the highlight of their season last year was beating their rival, the Washington State Cougars. But the Wazoo Cougars and this year already have really handled business by beating both Idaho. I don't know if that's necessarily handling business when you barely beat Idaho, but you come back and you beat San Diego State like you're supposed to. Right? Washington State last year was a team that went on a run. It was 8-1 to start the season. They just kind of imploded there at the end. Right? Like I said, they're handling their business, but Oregon State simply is not. So all that being said, that's kind of the high level of Oregon State. You kind of mentioned Malik Murphy. So I think 4 years ago, we probably would have predicted that Texas Tech eventually would play Malik Murphy, but wearing a different color orange, right? Coming from Texas. But even then, even when he was the backup quarterback to Quinn Ewers, it was Murphy, he's adequate, big guy, big arm, athletic, but he has a ceiling. Right? Even at Texas, it was kind of known that he has a ceiling. It was known that he's a big, physical guy, strong arm, but how good can he really be, right? I'll say this, at Duke last year, I was actually impressed by him. I didn't expect much from him at Duke last year. I did not think they should have moved on from him because I thought he was actually pretty good at Duke. But now we're seeing what happens when he's playing with not a very good roster around him. Like Duke actually had a pretty good roster last year. The team was a decent team, decent program. Now we're seeing Malik Murphy with not so great players, right? You kind of mentioned a couple of the guys they have on offense, and Hankerson and Walker, or Hankerson, sorry, and Walker. But outside, there's not a lot of talent on offense for this formal league. So that's what I think makes the Fresno State loss that much worse, because you had the talent advantage against Fresno State. You threw for 400 yards against Fresno State. You threw for 4 touchdowns against Fresno State, and you still lost.
Mm-hmm.
So a pick six, like you mentioned, was pretty terrible. So I say that to say, how can Texas Tech I mean, he's still a running quarterback. He's still a big, powerful quarterback. He's still the kryptonite that you always like to talk about. How can Texas Tech make sure that he doesn't go crazy on us?
Yeah, so this is kind of the key of the game. And I think that a large piece of this one of two things. One, like we've identified that our defensive backs are still kind of the weakest point on our team. Like it's Texas Tech, so the defensive backs are just going to be the weaker point. That has not been an issue thus far because our defensive line is the Monstars, backed up by the linebacking crew, just dynamic duo of position groups. And it's not given the like lower quality quarterbacks that we've been playing any time to really go through reads or anything like that. So we've been blessed, let me tell you. The offensive line for Oregon has been a question mark for them this season. I was listening to another podcast. I forgot the name of it now, Den something, but that Den podcast. And they were talking about how their offensive line being a question mark gets them very anxious because of the defensive line that we have just been manhandling, our opponents. So for them, it's a question of, for Oregon State, it's a question of, hey, I know that Texas Tech's like defensive backs are the weak point, but are we going to even have enough time to like get Malik an opportunity to throw out to where we want to go? The response there would be, if yes, then it's got to be like slants and stuff like that. But I mean, when you got your defensive linemen getting, pick sixes, like you have to be careful. You have to be really careful. So I think they're really going to rely on Anthony Hankerson. If they could have learned the triple option, buddy, that would have been their solution, but they cannot. So I think they're going to put the ball into Hankerson a lot more than they will, just give it like let Malik sling it. But at the same time, man, I don't think Hankerson's going to be able to get a lot going because that offensive line doesn't create gaps. And like, sure, you can bounce out, but I expect our like kind of star, like whoever's going to be out wide linebacker wise, that's going to be right there to meet you. So, I expect that game plan to fall apart mid-second quarter. Maybe we get up a couple scores, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh shoot, we really got to start throwing the ball. And at that point, it's a question of how do they scheme against, Malik being under pressure the whole time. I think just to full circle answer what you're talking about with him being a mobile quarterback, I don't know if his mobility is going to be a strength this game because he's going to be, he scampers around, but like the fact of the matter, back to the defensive line, they have shown just how agile they are at closing space, which is an insane concept for big defensive linemen. But it's true. We've got really mobile guys up front. And the ability with Shield Wood to scheme against something like this, the linebackers, I expect to see a spy. I expect to see somebody hanging out in the flats just waiting for him, right? And so even if Malik's the mobile quarterback that we remember him being at Texas, like you said, the ceiling is there. Like I don't expect that to be like, yeah, I'm just going to run it and get a 40-yard and just kind of follow that up with another 30, and then we get touchdowns. It's no big deal. I just don't think he's going to have that same option. And it comes down to their offensive line being not so great.
Well, so I will say this, right? We talk about him being a big burly quarterback, but he's also a quarterback that I got to say, he actually, Duke anyway, did not run as much as you would expect, right? He was, for the most part, a guy that's like, I like to sit in the pocket quite a bit, right? Despite, calm your stereotypes, this is the type of quarterback that I like to be. He actually kind of, as I brush up on some stats here and kind of looking at thinking about what he looked like, reminds me a little bit of Donovan Smith. A little bigger. Yeah. Reminds me a little bit of Donovan Smith in that aspect of like, I have the athleticism, but I'm not going to run a 4.3 40. I'm a big burly guy that might run you over, but for the most part, I'm going to try to stay in the pocket if I can. Mm-hmm. But here's the issue for Malik Murphy is that other teams are like, cool, we like that. Stay in the pocket, right? Because if we look at his game, so just like I would say the funny thing about the Fresno State game, it's probably one of the greatest games of his career. That's the crazy part. Yeah. It's a game where he loses by 2 possessions. He throws 2 interceptions, including a pick 6, and it might legitimately be the best passing game of his career because he threw for 65% completion and for 4 touchdowns. You want to know some of the other games he's had in his career that was also a high. The two, that's actually the most yards he's ever thrown for. Number 2 and number 3, when it comes to yardage he's ever thrown for, was last year. He threw for 332 yards against Virginia Tech. He had 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and a less than 50% completion percentage. Right. The other game, a game against Miami where they got thudded. Threw for 325 yards, but also 60% completion, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. If you say, okay, well, Abby, what about back when he played in the Big 12, when he was at Texas? He had to be a little bit better, right? All right, the one game he played the majority of the game, right, was a game against Kansas State. They did win that one, so good for him. However, threw for 248 yards, 51% completion percentage, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. So, as far as I'm concerned, let him sling it.
Yeah.
Let him
does not have a track record of success. Nope.
Yeah, absolutely. Let him sling it. So you were mentioning offense. So when it comes to those offensive weapons, you mentioned a couple key guys. That running back, Anthony Hankerson, really balled out in last week's game. And so he's definitely somebody to look at. Another senior that's on this team is also Trent Walker, their star slot receiver as well. What other skill players offensively speak out to you?
I mean, the second guy that they usually go to in Taz Reddick's out wide, but really outside of that, it's kind of anybody's game, right? Their scheme so far has been very kind of a pro style, seemingly balanced attack, but again, just really relying on Hankerson when the pass game is not going their way. So, yeah, as far as names go offensively, I mean, Hankerson, Walker, Reddick's, Malik Murphy. Like, I don't expect them to deviate too much from those guys, unless there's just an opportunity. At the same time, if we're not covering up a guy like David Wells or Salahadin Allah, then hey, they may get the ball once or twice. But as far as like the weapons that Malik's going to feel comfortable with, those are the 3 guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's switch to the other side of the ball and let's talk about the defense for Oregon State, who gave up 34 points to Cal and 36 points to Fresno State.
Yeah.
All right. So I know Texas Tech makes 2025 defense look pretty easy, right? I mean, for us, there ain't no problem, right? We've only given up 21 points in 2 full games. Meanwhile, Oregon State likes to give 21 points up like it's candy. But defensively, who are some guys that stand out to you?
No one really. I think that. Well, I mean, they got some guys that have played decently well, right? You've got an interception, Jaleel Tucker, this season. You've got good pass deflections when they target people like Trey Glasper as well as Skylar Thomas. But as I always say, if you're top, and this is 3 of their top 4 defenders are defensive backs. Boo, buddy. That's a problem.
yeah, you and I looked at the stat at the same time. 3 of their top 4 tacklers so far on the season are all DBs. Not great, Bob. I will say their leading tackler is also their leading deflector, which is Skylar Thomas, senior for the Beavers. Was also a starter last year as well, where he was able to get an interception and a fumble on the season. Right, 80 tackles, but again, 80 tackles for a DB through the season.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yikes! That is not a good recipe whatsoever for what we would expect this team to be able to do. Now he is a strong safety, so at least not a corner, so a little bit better. Yeah. But still, I will say this about Skylar Thomas though, is that he does seem to be one of the leaders on this team. He is a guy that is really had the opportunity to really bring himself forward for this team. I expect him to be able to fly to the ball and really get over and everywhere. So it's not necessarily talking down on him, but it is talking down on the scheme of a defense to where he might end up being the only quality player you have.
Yeah, and they have had some flashes with their sophomore linebacker and Dexter Foster. That's got to look good when you're thinking about the future of this defense. Like, hopefully we're building up a little bit of momentum here. But yeah, overall, schematically, whatever they're doing is not working. Because, again, it ain't working. They're like the opposite of complimentary football. They have like one shutout quarter against Fresno State. That was awesome, guys.
Well, I know it's complimentary. It's just, or what's the opposite of complimentary? Where it's like you compliment each other negatively. Someone ask ChatGPT and get back to us. So where are some ways that Texas Tech can really exploit? I mean, the line here is 21.5. We're trying to cover. We ain't trying to win. We're trying to win nicely. So what are some ways that Texas Tech can exploit this defense?
I think, I actually don't think you have to deviate too much from the playbook you've already given out. I think that, we've been really keen with running. Also, by the way, every preview I've read, every, the podcast I've listened to, everyone is like, dude, Adam Hill, Texas Tech's running back, Adam Hill. Oh my God, they don't even know. They don't even know this guy's third string. They didn't even know this guy didn't exist until Quentin Joyner went down. And now they think he's the cream of the crop because he's up here cutting up FCS teams. And they're going to be like, wait, who the hell is – wait, what is this guy? This ain't Adam Hill. This guy's dark.
Well, let me ask you this, though. Will it? Like we talked about it in the last episode where Adam Hill is just taking advantage of his shot, his opportunity. I mean, it's not like he's the only one going up against FCS opponents. Jacoby Williams and Cam Dickey are as well. Now, obviously, Adam Hill is playing usually against some of their backups, like Arkansas, Pine Bluff, and Kent State. Eventually, had he let the backups play as well, and that's also when Adam Hill was cooking. But that being said, right at last game, Adam Hill was even getting some first half touches, and like I mentioned before, I think there's a very good chance that he's playing his way into maybe not starting. But getting that three-headed monster that we were always going to have, right? When Quentin Joyner, before he went down, it was always known that Quentin Joyner, Williams, and Dickey were going to get touches. Joyner was going to get the most of those touches, but all three of them were still going to get touches. So now it may be a scenario where, okay, well, we still have a three-headed monster. Jacoby might get the bulk of the touches this time around, but we still have a three-headed monster as opposed to what I think most Tech fans assumed, which was just going to be the two of them.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong. It's going to evolve into that, no doubt. I just think it's funny that everybody's keying up on Adam Hill. Like
he's also second in the conference in rushing,
which is wild. Wild. We're that good. But yeah, I mean, you don't have to deviate from the playbook. I think that the balance that we've had with running and passing has been really good. We have not relied too much on screens, thank God. We're taking a couple of shots downfield, but it's not very often, right? It's just playing our game and being comfortable, especially with Baron Morton. I think that that's just going to be the right thing to do in this game. Don't expect to see any kind of crazy, 9 cloud over the top formations for, Oregon State. So I think that we'll be fine.
Yeah. So I'm going to kind of jump to the end here a little bit. Who is the offensive player that's going to bust through this Oregon State defense and help us get a nice, comfortable win?
I think Oregon State's been having trouble with good passing. And, I'm not going to pick the obvious in Baron Morton, but I think that there's a little bit of an understatement when it comes to Reggie Virgil. And I think that Reggie Virgil will have a pretty good game because they're gonna key up what's his name? Can't remember his name. They're going to keep what's his name on top of Reggie Virgil as a strong safety. But even still, like Reggie Virgil, both just athletically, just physicality is just much bigger and much more talented than he is. So I think that they're going to really bully that matchup. And if that's not even working, I mean, list me any one of the tight ends on kind of a deficient linebacking crew. Like the passing game is going to be where it's going to be at. So. But I do think this would be a really good game for Reggie Virgil against this Oregon State defense.
Going on a limb there, Jeremy, our wide receiver with the most touchdowns in the yard, the number one guy. Yeah, good job. How so bold? So bold.
How can I be so bold?
How can you? Who I'm gonna go with? Adam Hill, baby. Adam Hill. I'm riding the train. All right. I'm riding the train. I want him to continue to get these opportunities, right? It doesn't matter who the opponent is. I want Adam Hill to keep going. I think this is another game where we might see some backup. I really think we're gonna beat the hell out of this team. So we might see some backups in here. So even if Adam Hill doesn't get the touches in the first half, like I think he's earned, I expect him when he does get some touches to let him cook. I expect him to cook while he's in the game. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that there. Jeremy, defensively, who do you expect to step up?
Defensively, Lee Hunter. I think Lee Hunter is due for a bigger game. And I think with Oregon State's kind of offensive line being questionable for them in the first couple of games, I mean, this is a perfect opportunity for a quarterback Hunter to go in and get it, to go in and pressure Malik Murphy the way that he likes to do. Just continue to – the reason that we, really recruited him hard to come over here, do that. Do what you do, man.
So a couple of notes on the defensive side of the ball. Romello Height is questionable for this game. So Lee Hunter, I think, is a really good pick there because, with Romello Height, he's being questionable, we're going to need the other three horsemen, Skylar Howard, Lee Hunter, and David Bailey to really step up in that absence. If Romello Height does end up not playing in this game, we may see more Charles Esther. We'll probably see more Terrell Tillman. I'm curious to see if A.J. Holmes maybe moves over to the side a little bit and starts playing some of that 4 technique as opposed to being in the DT, being at DT, right? And so another thing is that Amir Boyd did get arrested. So with him getting arrested for reckless driving, got moved in the depth chart as well. It looks like he's still playing or at least dressing out, but did get moved in the depth chart. So we talked about the secondary a little bit. Malik Murphy going to try to slant. So let's, Bryce Pollock, step to the front here and let's see what you got. Yes, Bryce Pollock, you're going to get a little bit more. You're going to get more snaps in this game. You're going to get more opportunities. Let's get us a pick. So that's who I'm going with there. So before we get to the prediction of the number 1 game of the week, we got to go to some other games, Jeremy, and see what is going on in the world of the Big 12. All right. So week 3 in the Big 12, and we start off with some conference games finally. Right. So Friday night, as everybody's, if you're listening to this, right, when we pub, that means the game is that night, right? Friday night, Colorado v. Houston. Coach Prime versus Primetime Texas.
That's right. That was a great one.
That was good.
Land it.
Thank you. Surprisingly, Houston is a 4.5 point. I've been telling you, man, it's kind of weird. People really do not trust the Buffs with no Travis Hunter, no Shadir Sanders. It's their loss to Georgia Tech was, I didn't think it was anything to be embarrassed about. They were underdogs in that one too. They beat Delaware, and so for them to be 4.5 point dogs in this game, I know it's on the road, is a bit surprising. I mean, Houston didn't look bad in their first 2 games either, but I'm shocked to hear what you have to say about this one, Colorado Houston.
I'm not totally surprised. 100% with you. I think that Colorado not having those 2 star names on the roster, the focus on the focus on Colorado nearly completely dissipated after they left. Like there hasn't been a big focus on hey, what's Prime going to do in this season? It's kind of just dissipated into the Big 12 as a whole, right? What's going on in the Big 12? Trying to balance that out. Meanwhile, Houston is 2-0, right? They have not lost, and they played SF. They played SFA, and then they played Rice. But I mean, hey, you can't count out the SFA Jacks, right? So blanked them though, 27-0, right? So that's significant for a team that just lost their defensive coordinator, and then winning 35-9 against Rice. A mild but rivalry all the same. Whereas Colorado, struggled against itself against Georgia Tech, ended up losing that game, and then bouncing back against Delaware, right? So, but I think that this game is going to be interesting because it's we are in the perfect moment where it's I don't know what to make of any of these non-conference games. So that first conference game for everybody is such a good litmus test for Delaware really are them dogs. And so Colorado was so good that they beat Delaware, stuff like that. So, but because it's in Houston, and that doesn't mean diddly squat, I think it's going to be a pretty close game. But right now I have more faith in the Cougars defense than because they did hold Rice pretty well. So I have more faith in Houston's defense than I do Colorado's offense.
I'm going to call this the Should We Care About You Bowl. Loser of this game, all right. I'm not going to care about you.
You're never in the club. You ain't never coming on the club.
You ain't coming on the club. Or coming in the club. The winner of this game, I'm like, maybe. Right? I started thinking at the very least, I got to watch out for that guy. I really should. For those that don't know, I have a degree from the University of Houston. I should be a bigger supporter. But like most people with degrees from the University of Houston, I couldn't care less. So I'm going to go Colorado. I think they're a well-coached team. I think that I think they're a well-coached team. I think they're a team that is wildly underrated. And so, but I am curious to see what happens here. I say that they're underrated, but maybe they're rated. And maybe they lose this game, and then I will stop caring. And I will stop holding the torch for them. All right. Same thing Friday night. Kansas State at Arizona. Kansas State, a 1.5 road favorite. Who you got in this one?
That's wild. People are still all in on the Avery Johnson experiment. No, man, I am feeling what
these are boys. Down. These are boys.
I'm feeling what Arizona's putting down, if I'm being honest. I think that Noah Fafita is really hitting his stride. Arizona's played some impressive football comparatively to last year. Kansas State, you're already 1-2 on the season, and you lost some terrible.
Could have easily been 0-3. Could have easily been 0-3.
Could have been 0-3. Not for a Big 12 favorite. Thank God we did not have that preseason poll, buddy. Let me tell you. Kansas State has so much work to do to gain any favor back. It has to start in Tucson, but I'm afraid that, Wildcats are getting a little bit of taste of like, this is what we wanted to be last year. Like, this is what we wanted. A little bit more excitement, a little bit more consistency. I think Arizona is going to edge. Now, the spread being that close does make sense, right? But I do think that Arizona is going to find a way to make Avery Johnson, shoot themselves in the foot again. Excuse me, not Avery Johnson. Matt Wells is his name.
Yeah. I'll say this. I'm not as high on Arizona as you are. And I'm going to give the Wildcats one more chance. I like to get my heart broken a lot. I'm going to give the Wildcats one more. They have not looked good in a single game yet. I'm going to give them one more opportunity to show that they are – because here's the thing. They only lost one conference game. They still could very well be in the running for the Big 12 championship. Yeah. But they haven't looked like a championship team at all. You know what they've looked like? This year's version of Utah is what they look like. Oof. And so lose this game, and I'm gonna stamp you. Now, luckily, after this game, they got UCF at home. So no matter what, they'll have a little bit of something to walk on to. Well, a light week. But I'm going to give them one more shot to prove me right. To prove that, or not prove me right, but prove like themselves right and their fan base right, that they're actually a good team. All right. Samford, not Stanford, but Samford at Baylor. There's not even a spread on this game. So
there's a good reason for that.
Yeah, Baylor by a lot, huh?
Next.
All right. Northwestern State at Cincinnati. Again, not a line in this one either.
I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy about the game, but Cincinnati, you gotta decimate these guys for the sake of your team's morale.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon Sorsby grew. What's going on here, right? You look good and then the loss to Nebraska, and then you look bad in the win against Bowling Green. Get your confidence up, work through some things, beat Northwestern State greatly until you have to go and play Kansas next. The backyard brawl, 3:30 ESPN, Pittsburgh, West Virginia, two teams that flat out don't like each other. Pitt, 7.5-point favorites. Do they deserve to be, Jeremy?
Yeah, they do. They do. And as much as I'd be happy for West Virginia to take that rivalry, they're not this year. It's another beatdown. But remember last year they had the game against Pitt too, where I was really high on West Virginia, and I think we all generally were, but lost to Pitt again, right? And so even though you're back in Morgantown, and rivalry games like this, always weird, always funky. Maybe West Virginia's just going to like get up for this game and make it close, but I just think that you haven't shown me enough to feel confident to pick you. So Pitt for me.
I've been to West Virginia. both the state and Morgantown, and I've also been to Pittsburgh. Pitt's going to beat West Virginia just as bad as their Pittsburgh, the city, beats West Virginia, the state. I'm like I said, I've given Kansas State one more chance to prove that they're a good team. I didn't even give West Virginia a half to prove whether or not they were a good team. That is not a good team. Yeah. All right. 4 o'clock on ESPN2, 14th ranked Iowa State at Arkansas State. Iowa State, 21.5-point favorites. Why the hell did Iowa State even have this game played in Jonesboro, Arkansas to begin with? But who wins this game?
Hey, clones by 1,000.
Cloned by 1,000. 21.5-point spread. I mean, Vegas agrees with you.
That's right.
Yeah. The spread is very interesting to me, though, because you would think it'd be more. But I think a lot of reason why it's not more is because they're like, yeah, but Iowa State ain't gonna score that much.
They don't.
That's basically what it is. Yeah, they're not gonna score that much. The basic Vegas is like, look, they probably gonna win this game 27-6. You know, like that's which I'm like, yeah, that's a Matt Campbell special. All right, 8 o'clock on the plus. Abilene Christian at TCU, no line.
TCU.
By a lot, by 1,000. Though, it'd be interesting to see if Abilene Christian does make it somewhat of a game.
Sure.
The win here would be Josh Hoover playing in the third quarter. That's the win.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That's the win for sure. Utah, 20th ranked Utah at Wyoming. And let me tell you something. There is such things as trap games. The Utah fans have already dismissed this game and gone to Texas Tech. They've already started the trash talk. Let me tell you something about the trash talk. Now, the trash talk that I've been seeing from Utah fans, so wildly ignorant, so idiotic and stupid, so bad, and I love it. Good job, Utah. I respect it. I'm like, oh, man. Yeah, keep posting the picture of Amarillo and claiming it's Lubbock. Oh, that's fantastic. Good job, guys. Yeah,
keep doing it.
You keep doing it. This is awesome. This is everybody complains about Utah for being dumb, but I'm like, you know what? But this is what good college football fandom is all about. All right, misinformation to prove your superiority. That's awesome. That's fantastic. Good job, Utes. But the fan base has looked ahead, and it makes me wonder if the players have too. 23.5-point spread is a big spread on the road.
I've seen this story before. I've seen this story before. I don't think that, and again, fan view is not indicative of like how the team is preparing for the game. But
it's not.
I'm wildly baffled by like the disrespect that Wyoming generally receives when you're playing in Laramie. And just like, Wyoming, who are they? Who cares? Like, we'll go in there, smack them. Who do we have next? Because that's real important. We got to get our minds right. And like Wyoming has made a history. Like they are known as a team that wears down the other team. Altitude, time, like it's just like they wear opponents down. And in the fourth quarter, their head coach has had more fourth quarter comebacks than any other D1 coach. And it's just like, how do you not like respect that as an opponent? But Utah fans are pretty, like you said, they're not doing a lot of hard work on the research end of things. So while I do think that Utah has all the firepower and ability to win this game, so did we when we played them. And even though we got out to the separation that we did, that didn't matter. That didn't matter for the old Wyoming guys. So it's going to be a close one. It's going to be a lot closer than what Utah fans want to believe.
I don't think I will. So I will say this: Utah's going to win. I don't think they cover. I almost makes you want to bet and take Wyoming with the points because I don't see 23.5. I do see Utah winning by 2 touchdowns. I don't necessarily know if it'll be close because I think Utah is going to show themselves to be the superior team. But like a 2-touchdown victory, a win, a 35-17 win, that's a 17-point victory. Like that to me, I'm like, or 18-point victory. I mean, that to me, I'm like, okay, that checks out, right? 2 to 3 scores. That checks out a bit, and that I could see Utah doing. But beating them by over 24 or more points, I think Wyoming is a better program than that, and especially, like you said, games in Laramie. Games in September in Laramie. Watch out for them. Texas State at Arizona State. Let me tell you something, GJ Kinney. You want to endear yourself to certain schools in Southwest America that may need a new head coach coming up pretty soon. Cough, cough, Oklahoma State. Cough, cough, Baylor if they're not contending for the Big 12 title. This is the best way to do it, is knocking off the old Big 12 champion, right? Texas State comes on the road, only an 18.5-point dog. Kind of surprising. Can Texas State pull off the impossible?
I think that they have the momentum too. They just got off a week beating UTSA. And UTSA not off to a great start this season, but at the same time, like, this is still Jeff Traylor. This is still a coach that everybody was gunning after, you know, and it's like, or like, hey, is this the heir apparent? Including Tech. And it's just like, is this the heir apparent for, you know, University of Texas because Sark sucks? And it stayed at UTSA, wanted to be the Roadrunner, right? And Texas State kind of maintaining a strong heading. Like, Texas State is on a really cool trajectory as a football program. And so I think that Texas State is just being disrespected in this. Yeah, Arizona State is, again, another Big 12 favorite. But Arizona State looked really bad against Mississippi State. Really bad on the road. And yeah, they're at home, so there's going to be a little bit of win there. But I think Texas State's going to keep it a really close game, at least through the half. I do think Arizona State gets the edge, but I think that Texas State's going to kind of come out punching. Arizona State's not going to be, you know, ready for that one.
Yeah, I kind of agree as well. I think I'll agree with a lot of what you said. Texas State they're one of the favorites for the Sun Belt this year. They're another school that's about to be in the Pac-12 here pretty soon. And so they're working their way up. They're wanting to show that they are the program they need to be. I think they're going to give Arizona State a fight, especially in the first half. I just think that eventually Arizona State's size and depth and just talent level will prevail in the second half, but I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk at all. I think it'll be another similar to the Utah game where they might win by 10, 14, 17, but it's not going to be a blowout. But you know what will be? Texas Tech against Oregon State. Texas Tech, 23.5-point favorites at home right now. The line actually moved. I'm pretty sure it was 21.5 originally. You know, Texas. So giving you some stats. I know you like some preview stats, and that's one of your favorite things to hear me talk about. So ESPN matchup predictor has Texas Tech a 93.6% chance of winning this game. If we look at some of the other stuff between these two teams, we know Texas Tech, pretty average team when it comes against the spread, 6-4 against the spread. When it comes to betting the over-under, always bet the over, 8-2 on our last 10 in those games. But just like we're a above-average spread team, you know, who's a bad team and a bad spread team? Oregon State, 2-8 in their last 10 games against the spread. Excuse me. They were actually favored against Fresno State, funny enough, and still lost. But yeah, only 2 wins in the last 10 games against the spread here. It just has not been great for them. Some other pieces just of note overall. Defensively, Texas Tech definitely has the edge over them, over the Oregon State's offense. Flip side, Oregon State right now giving up 337 total yards to Cal and Fresno State. So God bless them, what they're going to do to us with Texas Tech currently averaging 600 total yards. Absolutely great things here for Texas Tech as we play this team. Jeremy, I got to ask you, though. First time ever playing Oregon State and Texas Tech, who gets the upper hand in the series?
Oh, well, I think
that, who covers?
All the things considering. Covers.
Yeah, covers. We won't do wins and losses because we're not dumb. But who's gonna who wins the spread?
Texas
Oregon
Tech
State
wins the spread, man.
They win spread. They covered.
Yeah, we're gonna cover that pretty handily, I think.
Score?
Oregon State's given up 30 dogs to 2 teams that really shouldn't get that much on any kind of power team, and Texas Tech has been dunking 50 burgers at the half point on crappy teams. So I do think that we actually eclipse another 50 burger. I think it ends up being like 53-21, maybe 53-17. I have a lot of faith in our defense to keep Malik Murphy from being comfortable. And we have way too many weapons on offense for Oregon State to get comfortable at all. Like, we got the good guy down. We got Reggie Virgil locked down. We got 2 guys on him. who's this white guy? Oh my God, he ran right past me, right? So, yeah, I do think we get another 50 burger, which would be, I would like to go back and see the last time we scored 50 in 3 straight games. That'd be really interesting.
I feel like Kingsbury's name is probably there when you look that up. I got it 45-14.
Okay.
So Texas Tech covers 45-14. I think the team's for real. And what's going to happen is after we beat this team by that score, it's going to be a lot of, well, Oregon State's nobody either. And you know what? They'll be right. Oregon State's nobody either. But we're still going up our levels, right? Worst team in FC, one of the worst teams in FCS, one of the worst teams in FBS, one of the worst teams in what used to be a power conference. Now, let's work our way up and we'll really get ready for Utah. Just like I'm talking about Utah not looking ahead, Texas Tech does not need to be looking ahead either. But I think we're coached well enough to do so and not have to worry about that. So Texas Tech by 1 million.
That's right. Texas Tech forever.
Texas Tech forever, brother. Jeremy, anything else you want to say to the people?
That's it. Hope everybody enjoys the game. 2:30. It ain't 10 a.m., so it's better.
It is not 10 a.m. So Jeremy got to get out of here. I got to go to sleep. So for the for the people, Sham Jeremy Gillen, this is your boy Albie Shore, and you have been listening to the Tortillas and Takes podcast, part of the 1012 Network. As always, stay right, people. All right.